The legend says there was once a bad man who hated cats. He hated his neighbors too, and his job, and when it rained, he'd curse and smash things. He hated his bald head and his weak, ugly body. He probably hated himself the most, although he would never admit it. One day, out of pure hatred for the world and everything that lives, he captured a family of cats and drowned them all in the river. That day, the sun turned black and all the birds went silent as the 6 kittens struggled for life. But trapped in a strong canvas bag, they never had a chance. They all died that day. All but one. The mother cat, in a desperate fight to set herself free, by pure luck, clawed herself free from the bag and swam to the shore. She lost everything that day, her beautiful children and her proud husband. Her heart crashed into pieces as she watched their dead limp bodies being stolen by the current. Running after them, she followed them for days, as long as she could, but eventually she lost sight of them. She stayed on the bank of the river for a while. The world stopped turning for her, her eyes empty and blind. And then, one day, she slowly slid down the bank into the cold, dark water. She gave into it. She let the river take her away too, covering her mouth, her ears, her eyes. As the water filled her lungs, she started slipping into darkness. There was another strange feeling that burst into her mind like a ball of flames. Anger, rage even, her last craving before she drowned, was for revenge, for blood. And so she returned, reborn and changed, a cat widow, veiled in black, mistress of the cats. Her body of a young woman, but her eyes of a cat, and her face, white, rotten, face of a corpse. Those who saw it rarely lived to tell the tale. She would get her revenge on all cat killers and cat torturers. But there was someone she had to see first. Someone special. Someone she really hated the most. As the evening came, it was strangely quiet in the man's flat, as he lived alone. He usually liked to fill the silence with the radio or TV shows. But that night he switched them all off, feeling anxious and tired after work. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. For once, there wasn't anyone he could blame for it. As he stared through the window, he couldn't stop thinking about how much he hated that view. He liked it once, a long time ago, when his wife was still there, and they were happy together. Suddenly, he heard a knocking at the door. Some part of him was glad, because that meant he could take it out on whoever dared bother him. There was nobody there. He felt almost disappointed. But as he turned to walk away, he suddenly noticed something down the hall. On a nearby wall, there was a shadow of a cat. He stopped again. He couldn't believe his eyes. Someone had wrote "Cat Killer" on his door. He had a passion for trains, although he hated being a train driver. He had always enjoyed watching them move, but now his train model was moving all on its own. He was certain he had left it off, but there it was, running at crazy speed, remote control missing. Something was seriously wrong, and that something had entered his home now too. He hoped he was just imagining things, as tired as he was. But there was another surprise, waiting for him in his bedroom. Cat Widow was here. was written all over his wall. As in a dream, he went to the kitchen to get a drink. There was no water. He knew there was a valve in the basement that turned it off. But no one had been down there in years. He felt sick. None of this made any sense, and yet deep down he knew what he did to the cats was wrong. There was a part of him that almost wanted to be punished. The part he tried so hard to hide. He thought he heard something in the corridor. Was there someone there with him? His head was spinning. He felt ambushed like a trapped animal. Getting really scared now, he decided to call the police. His phone was of no use. His SIM had been removed. And that wasn't the worst part. His screensaver had been set to a picture of a black cat. He remembered this cat. He watched the strange pest control man put it into a cage, into his van. He looked at it through the window for a while, then pulled the curtains and went to bed. He stopped, paralyzed. He'd heard something in front of him, a whisper, more of a purr. She was there, in the dark corner of his living room, waiting, black veil covering that pale, dead face, and yet he could almost feel Catwoman's eyes piercing through him. She came closer, like a ghost, and swiftly removed the veil. She came back for him, to take him to the river, to make him pay for what he'd done. As he looked into her eyes, he could feel the world spinning around him, his knees go weak, his pants suddenly wet around the crotch area. As much as he hated life, he didn't want to die either. Inside, he was just a big, stinking coward. And then he fainted into darkness.